The impossible ship. Grand Admiral Zeth Raoul of the Sarkonian Imperial Fleet stared at the tactical display with mounting disbelief. The human vessel approaching his formation defied every principle of starship engineering he'd studied in his 67 years of military service. "Magnify visual," he ordered, his secondary tentacles twitching with irritation. The massive viewscreen displayed the approaching vessel in excruciating detail. The Terran ship, if one could even call it that, was a patchwork nightmare of mismatched hull plating. Radiation leaked from improperly sealed conduits. Weapon emplacements jutted out at seemingly random angles, creating mass imbalances that should have sent the ship spinning wildly out of control. Most baffling of all, external cargo modules and hastily welded repair patches covered nearly 30% of its hull surface. "Commander, what am I looking at?" Zeth Raoul demanded. His tactical officer, Ven Shar, consulted her instruments with growing confusion. "According to our scans, that vessel is designated TA's Paradox. It's using 3 incompatible propulsion systems simultaneously." "Admiral, that's physically impossible," the engineering liaison interjected. "The quantum harmonics would tear it apart before it achieved light speed." Yet there it was, not only intact but accelerating toward their battle group. 8 pristine Sarkonian warships, the pride of the Imperial fleet, each one a masterwork of balanced design and elegant engineering. "The humans call it the Paradox. How fitting," Zeth Raoul muttered. "Battle stations." Captain Ilara Voss grinned as the Paradox's engines groaned in protest. The ship shuddered violently as the gravitic impellers struggled to synchronize with the fusion torches and the experimental quantum slip drive. "Chief Singh," she called over the intercom, "how's our engine room holding up?" The reply came through a storm of static and what sounded suspiciously like cursing. "We've got 3 separate containment breaches, Captain. The phase harmonizer is at 213% of rated capacity, and I've got Team 3 physically holding the coolant lines together." "But will it hold?" Voss pressed, unfazed by the report. A moment of silence. Then, "Probably. For a while, at least." Voss smiled. In her experience, probably was as good as a guarantee from her chief engineer. "Tactical, what are we facing?" she asked, turning to Lieutenant Commander Kai Winters. Winters, a former pirate's vessel mechanic before the war, studied his improvised sensor console, a hodgepodge of salvaged military tech and civilian navigation systems. 8 Sarkonian warships, Captain. Immaculate formation, as always. Standard Imperial Kanjar-class destroyers, with what looks like a Talon-class flagship. And their weapons, fully charged and locked on us, Mom. Voss nodded, unsurprised. The Sarkonians were nothing if not predictable. Their technological superiority had made them complacent, rigid in their tactics. Everything by the book. Too bad the Paradox had never read their book. "All hands, prepare for combat maneuvers," Voss announced. "Dr. Nakamura, is the contradiction engine online?" From the science station came the calm voice of the ship's theoretical physicist. "It is, Captain, though I must again advise caution. The principles at work are still largely theoretical." "Theory becomes practice under fire, Doctor," Voss replied. "Engage on my mark." The Paradox's bridge crew, a mix of military personnel, civilian specialists, and a few individuals with questionable backgrounds, moved with practiced efficiency despite the chaotic layout of their workstations. They'd learned to embrace the chaos, to work with it rather than against it. The massive viewscreen showed the approaching Sarkonian fleet, their ships gleaming under the light of the system's binary stars. Perfect formations, perfect symmetry, perfect predictability. "They're opening fire," Winters reported. "Mark," Voss commanded. Aboard the Imperial flagship, Grand Admiral Zeth Raoul watched with satisfaction as his ships unleashed a perfectly coordinated barrage. Quantum torpedoes and plasma lances streaked across space in meticulously calculated patterns, designed to overwhelm any defense system known to the galaxy. "Direct hits confirmed," Venshar reported. Their shields are failing. But then something unprecedented happened. The human vessel's shields, if those flickering, asymmetrical energy fields could even be called shields, began absorbing the Sarkonian weapon's fire. Not deflecting it, as proper shield technology should, but somehow consuming it. Impossible, the engineering liaison whispered. They're using our own attack energy to reinforce their structural integrity field. Before Zethrael could process this violation of fundamental physics, the paradox returned fire. Its weapons, a bizarre assortment of standard railguns, repurposed mining lasers, and what appeared to be modified terraforming charges, unleashed a chaotic storm of destruction. The Sarkonian formation, designed to defend against conventional attacks, suddenly found itself vulnerable. The human weapons weren't targeting their shield generators or weapon emplacements as military doctrine dictated. Instead, they struck at seemingly random points across multiple vessels. How are they penetrating our defenses? Zethrael demanded as the first of his destroyers reported critical damage. They're not following proper targeting protocols, Admiral, Venshar replied, her voice tight with confusion. Our defensive algorithms are designed to anticipate logical attack patterns. Their fire it's completely erratic. A second Sarkonian vessel exploded as a jury-rigged human missile somehow bypassed its point defense grid. The projectile itself was crude, little more than a fusion warhead attached to a commercial thruster, but it had found the one weakness in a shield matrix that had taken decades to perfect. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing, Zethrael realized with growing horror. They don't understand the rules. Aboard the Paradox, Captain Voss gripped her command chair as the ship shuddered under another Sarkonian barrage. Damage report, she called out. Decks 4 through 7 have hull breaches, reported Operations Officer Helena Chen. Emergency force fields are holding at 63% effectiveness. We've lost the port weapons array and the main sensor cluster. Casualties: 17 injured, no fatalities. Damage control teams are responding. Voss nodded grimly. Keep pressing the attack. Focus on their flagship. Through the viewport, she could see the elegant Sarkonian vessels attempting to reform their battle line. 2 had already been destroyed, and a third was venting atmosphere from multiple breaches. The remaining ships were falling back, trying to protect their flagship. They're retreating into a defensive posture, Winters observed. Classic Imperial doctrine. When faced with an unexpected threat, protect command assets above all else. Let's give them something else unexpected, Voss decided. Dr. Nakamura, increase power to the contradiction engine. I want to push it to 150%. The physicist looked alarmed. Captain, we've never tested it beyond 120%. The spatial distortion's cold. Could be exactly what we need. Voss finished for him. Do it. As Nakamura reluctantly complied, the paradox of already erratic energy signature began to fluctuate wildly. The ship seemed to blur at the edges, as though it existed in multiple states simultaneously. Chief Singh, Voss called out, I need more power to the forward shields. Strip it from life support if you have to. Already done, Captain, came the immediate reply. And I've rerouted emergency power from the artificial gravity system. We're running on borrowed time and duct tape down here. Voss allowed herself a thin smile. Borrowed time is still time. Chief, let's make it count. On the Sarkonian flagship, warning klaxons blared as sensors detected a massive energy surge from the human vessel. What are they doing? Zethrael demanded, watching as the paradox seemed to phase in and out of normal space. Unknown, Admiral, the science officer replied. Their energy signature doesn't match anything in our database. It's as if they're deliberately destabilizing their own quantum field. That's suicide, the engineering liaison protested. No ship can maintain structural integrity under those conditions. Yet the human vessel pushed forward, accelerating toward the heart of the Sarkonian formation. Its hull glowed with unnatural energies, radiation pouring from its damaged sections. Evasive maneuvers, Zethrael ordered, but it was too late. The paradox didn't ram them as expected. Instead, it passed directly through the space occupied by the Sarkonian flagship, momentarily existing in the same location. The resulting spatial distortion tore through the Imperial vessel like a cosmic blade, shearing it in half along with two nearby destroyers. As his ship broke apart around him, Grand Admiral Zeth Rael finally understood why the Terrans had been winning their war. The humans hadn't just built a warship. They'd created something that shouldn't exist, something that survived precisely because it defied the laws of conventional engineering. His last thought, as emergency force fields failed and the vacuum claimed him, was that the Sarkonian Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed superiority based on perfect technology, while the humans had embraced imperfection and turned it into their greatest weapon. The paradox limped away from the battlefield, trailing debris and venting plasma from a dozen hull breaches. Half its systems were offline. 3 decks were exposed to vacuum. The contradiction engine had overloaded, leaving them without their ace in the hole. Yet Captain Voss felt only triumph as she surveyed the floating wreckage of the Sarkonian battle group. 8 ships, the pride of the Imperial fleet, destroyed by her cobbled-together vessel and its crew of misfits. "Damage control teams to all decks," she ordered. "Chief Singh, what's our status?" "We're still here, Captain," came the exhausted reply. "It'll take weeks to repair all the damage, but the old girl held together." "Of course she did," Voss said, patting the scarred bulkhead affectionately. "She's a paradox. She works because she shouldn't." As the battered ship set course for the nearest Terran outpost, Captain Ilara Voss knew this battle would change everything. The Sarkonians had built their empire on perfect engineering and flawless strategy. Now they faced an enemy that turned flaws into strengths, that made weapons from weaknesses. The message would spread across the galaxy. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and they refused to play by anyone else's rules. Flaws as features. The Grand Council chamber of the Sarkonian Empire had never been so silent. 12 High Admirals, the pinnacle of Sarkonian military achievement, sat in stunned disbelief as they reviewed the battle footage for the 3rd time. High Chancellor Vex Moran, the Empire's supreme military commander, watched the recording with narrowed compound eyes. His carapace, normally a proud iridescent blue, had dulled to an ashen gray, a physiological sign of extreme distress among his species. "Explain to me," he finally said, his voice unnaturally quiet, "how 8 of our finest warships were destroyed by a single human vessel that by all scientific principles shouldn't even be capable of spaceflight." No one answered immediately. The loss of Grand Admiral Zeth Rael and his battle group had sent shockwaves through the Imperial hierarchy. The human ship violated fundamental principles of starship engineering. Admiral Krulzoth finally offered, "Our tactical systems are designed to counter rational opponents using proven technology. The humans have created an aberration that destroyed a significant portion of our 3rd fleet." Vex Moran countered, "Tell me about this vessel's capabilities." The military intelligence officer, a slender Sarkonian female named Tis Vera, stepped forward. "The Terran ship is designated TA's Paradox. It appears to be a prototype vessel, constructed primarily from salvaged components. What makes it unique is its propulsion system, a combination of technologies that should be mutually incompatible." "Explain," Vex Moran demanded. "They've integrated a standard fusion torch drive with gravitic impellers and an experimental quantum slip drive," Tis Vera continued. "The quantum harmonics should tear the ship apart. Yet somehow the dissonance creates a field effect that partially phases the vessel in and out of normal space. This makes it extraordinarily difficult to target and allows it to bypass conventional shields." Another admiral leaned forward. "What of this contradiction engine mentioned in the recovered communications?" "That remains unclear," Tis Vera admitted. "We believe it's a theoretical technology based on quantum uncertainty principles. The humans appear to have weaponized Paradox itself." Vex Moran's mandibles clicked in agitation. So they built a ship that survives because it shouldn't work, using technology that functions because it contradicts established physics. An apt summary, Chancellor. 'Tis vera confirmed. And who commands this monstrosity? The intelligence officer triggered a holographic display showing the human female with dark skin and a facial expression that Sarkonians recognized as confidence bordering on arrogance. Captain Ilara Voss, former merchant fleet officer with a background in unorthodox engineering solutions. Her crew is equally unusual, a mixture of military personnel and civilian specialists, including several individuals with criminal records. Vex Morin studied the image with growing concern. We face an enemy that embraces chaos and turns it to advantage. This cannot be allowed to continue. He turned to his assembled admirals. Prepare the first strike fleet. We will eliminate this threat before the humans can replicate their success. 2 weeks after the battle, the Paradox drifted in orbit around Demeter Station, a frontier outpost on the edge of Terran space. The ship's hull was a patchwork of emergency repairs, fresh scars layered over old ones. In the cavernous main hangar, Captain Voss surveyed the organized chaos of the repair operation. Engineers and technicians swarmed over the vessel, some wearing Terran Alliance uniforms, others in civilian attire. What they lacked in military precision, they made up for in creative problem-solving. Chief Engineer Raj Singh approached, wiping grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. His gray-streaked beard couldn't hide the exhaustion on his face, but his eyes sparkled with barely contained excitement. "Captain, you need to see what we've done with the contradiction engine," he said without preamble. "Dr. Nakamura has made some adjustments." Adjustments? Voss raised an eyebrow. "The last time you two made adjustments, we nearly inverted the ship into its own dimension." Singh grinned unrepentantly. "That was an accident. This time, it's deliberate." Voss followed her chief engineer through the maze of scaffolding and repair drones. The Paradox had never been a beautiful ship, not in the conventional sense. Unlike the sleek, symmetrical vessels favored by the Terran Alliance and the Sarkonian Empire alike, the Paradox was all function, no form. Every modification, every jury-rigged system had been added out of necessity rather than design. Yet Voss found a peculiar beauty in its imperfection. The Paradox was resilient precisely because it had been broken and repaired so many times, each flaw becoming a feature, each weakness transformed into a unique strength. They reached the heart of the ship, a chamber that should have been the main reactor room, but now housed something far stranger. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, the ship's theoretical physicist, stood before a towering apparatus that pulsed with energies that seemed to bend the light around them. "Captain," Nakamura greeted her, his normally calm demeanor giving way to barely restrained enthusiasm. "We've made a breakthrough." The contradiction engine, Nakamura's brainchild, dominated the center of the chamber. It resembled no conventional piece of technology Voss had ever seen. Part quantum computer, part particle accelerator, it incorporated elements of a dozen different technological traditions, many of them theoretically incompatible. The Sarkonian attack provided valuable data, Nakamura explained. When their weapons fire interacted with our phase-shifted hull, it created a cascade effect that temporarily amplified the engine's capabilities. "In English, Doctor," Voss requested. Singh interjected. "The more they hit us, the stronger we get. We've modified the engine to absorb enemy weapons fire and convert it directly into usable energy." Voss stared at the pulsing heart of her impossible ship. "You're telling me that damaging the Paradox will actually make it more powerful?" "Within limits," Nakamura cautioned. "But essentially, yes. The ship now thrives on adversity." A slow smile spread across Voss's face. "The Sarkonians are going to hate this." The communication from Terran Alliance Command came 3 days later. Admiral Helena Chen, no relation to the Paradox Operations Officer, appeared on the main view screen, her expression grave. "Captain Voss, we've received intelligence that the Sarkonians are mobilizing their first strike fleet, 17 capital ships, including their flagship, the Imperator. They're coming for you." Voss absorbed this news calmly. Time to intercept. Approximately 72 hours. The Alliance is scrambling every available ship to defend Demeter Station, but most are at least 5 days out. You'll be on your own for the initial engagement. We usually are, Admiral, Voss replied. After the communication ended, Voss gathered her senior officers in the Paradox's makeshift briefing room. The good news, she began, is that we've apparently scared the Sarkonians badly enough that they're sending their elite fleet to deal with us. The bad news is, well, they're sending their elite fleet to deal with us. Lieutenant Commander Winters whistled. The First Strike Fleet includes the Imperator. That's their most advanced warship, twice the size of a standard dreadnought, with weapons systems we've only theorized about. Can the Paradox stand against such firepower? Asked Helena Chen, the operations officer. On paper, absolutely not, Voss admitted. But then, on paper, this ship shouldn't be able to leave atmosphere, let alone defeat 8 Sarkonian warships. Chief Singh nodded in agreement. The contradiction engine modifications are holding steady. If Dr. Nakamura's calculations are correct, we should be able to absorb and redirect significant amounts of enemy fire. And if his calculations are wrong, Chen pressed, then we'll explode spectacularly. Singh replied with a shrug. But we were probably going to do that anyway. Dr. Nakamura cleared his throat. There is another consideration. The Imperator is rumored to utilize probability drive technology, a propulsion system that calculates the most efficient path through space-time and executes it with perfect precision. And, Voss prompted, and our ship operates on almost the opposite principle. The contradiction engine thrives on uncertainty and quantum instability. When these technologies interact, he trailed off. Boom, suggested Winters. Potentially, Nakamura conceded, or something far more interesting. Voss looked around at her unlikely crew. The brilliant but eccentric physicist, the unconventional engineer, the former pirate turned tactical officer, the methodical operations specialist. None of them would have been first choices for a conventional military vessel. Yet together, aboard the most improbable ship in the Terran fleet, they had accomplished the impossible. We have 3 days, she announced. Let's make them count. The Sarkonian First Strike Fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, a dazzling display of military precision. At its center, the Imperator dwarfed its escorts, a masterpiece of engineering that represented the pinnacle of Sarkonian technology. On its command deck, Fleet Admiral Krelzoth surveyed the tactical display with cold determination. Before him lay Demeter Station, a modest Terran outpost that would soon be reduced to debris, and in orbit around the station, a single ship, the infamous Paradox. Target that abomination, he ordered. All ships, coordinated fire pattern, Epsilon 9. The First Strike Fleet responded with mechanical precision. 17 ships, each a pinnacle of military engineering, brought their weapons to bear on the lone human vessel. Aboard the Paradox, Captain Voss watched the Sarkonian fleet appear. Despite the overwhelming odds, she felt strangely calm. They're charging weapons, Winters reported from tactical. Energy signatures indicate full power barrage incoming. All hands, brace for impact, Voss ordered. Dr. Nakamura, is the contradiction engine ready? Yes, Captain, came the physicist's steady reply. But I must warn you, the interactions between our technology and the Imperator's probability drive are unpredictable. We could experience unusual phenomena. Unusual is our specialty, Dr. Voss reminded him. Engage when ready. The Sarkonian barrage struck with devastating force. Energy weapons and quantum torpedoes converged on the Paradox from all directions, a storm of destructive power that should have vaporized the ship instantly. Instead, something miraculous happened. The contradiction engine surged to life, absorbing the incoming energy in defiance of conventional physics. The Paradox's hull glowed with impossible energies, shedding damage even as it took it. Engine at 320% capacity and rising. Nakamura reported, his voice rising in excitement and alarm. The feedback loop is exceeding all projections. Voss gripped her command chair. Return fire. All weapons. Target the Imperator. The Paradox unleashed its hodgepodge of weaponry, everything from military-grade railguns to repurposed mining charges. By any rational analysis, these should have been ineffective against the Imperator's advanced shields. But the contradiction engine had changed the rules of engagement. The Paradox's weapons fire carried with it quantum instabilities that rippled through space, distorting the perfectly calculated defenses of the Sarkonian vessels. On the Imperator's bridge, Fleet Admiral Krell Zoth watched in disbelief as his flagship's shields fluctuated wildly. "Impossible," he muttered. "Their technology is inferior in every way." "Admiral," his science officer reported, voice trembling, "their ship is generating quantum field distortions that are interfering with our probability calculations. The drive can't compensate." The Imperator's probability drive, a system designed to calculate and execute the perfect trajectory through spacetime, suddenly found itself facing inputs it couldn't process. As the human weapons continued to impact its shields, the drive's calculations became increasingly erratic. "Shut down the probability drive," Krell Zoth ordered. "Switch to conventional propulsion." But it was too late. The interaction between the Imperator's probability drive and the Paradox's contradiction engine had created a cascading failure in the fabric of local spacetime itself. Aboard the Paradox, alarms blared as sensors detected the growing spatial distortion. "Captain," Chen called out from operations, "the Imperator's drive is destabilizing. It's creating a temporal fracture." Voss turned to Nakamura. "In English, Doctor." "They're tearing a hole in reality," he translated, eyes wide. "And we're being pulled toward it. Can we break free?" Voss demanded. Same's voice came over the intercom. "Not a chance, Captain. Our engines are at maximum, but the gravitational pull is too strong." Voss made a split-second decision. "Then we go through. Full power to forward shields. Brace for transition." The Paradox and the Imperator, locked together in a deadly embrace of incompatible technologies, plunged into the temporal fracture. Space itself seemed to fold around them, reality stretching and compressing in ways that defied comprehension. For a moment that felt like eternity, the Paradox existed everywhere and nowhere at once. The crew experienced time flowing backward and forward simultaneously, glimpsing versions of themselves that might have been or might yet be. And then, abruptly, they were through. The Paradox emerged into normal space, systems failing across all decks. Through the viewport, they could see the shattered remains of the Imperator, its perfect engineering unable to withstand the journey through the fracture. "Damage report," Voss called out, her voice hoarse. "Critical systems at 23% functionality," Chen reported. "Hull integrity compromised on all decks. Weapons offline. Shields offline. Contradiction engine stable somehow." "And the Sarkonian fleet?" Winters checked his damaged sensors. "Gone, Captain. Or rather, we're gone. According to stellar positioning, we've been thrown 10 light years from our previous position. And if these temporal readings are correct..." He looked up, shock evident on his face. "We've also traveled 3 months into the future." Silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. "So," Voss said finally, "we've defeated the Sarkonian First Strike Fleet, traveled through time and space, and survived the impossible. Again." A weary cheer went up from the battered crew. The Paradox had lived up to its name once more, defying the very laws of physics to snatch victory from certain defeat. 3 months later, Captain Ilara Voss stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Terran Alliance headquarters on Earth. Before her, the combined Admiralty and civilian leadership waited expectantly. "The Sarkonian Empire has sued for peace," Admiral Chen announced to the assembled dignitaries. "Their entire military doctrine has been upended by the Paradox incident. They no longer believe their technological superiority guarantees victory." Murmurs swept through the crowd. Voss remained impassive, though inwardly she felt a surge of pride. Not for herself, but for her ship and crew. "Captain Voss," the admiral continued, "your actions have changed the course of this war. The Alliance wishes to commission an entire class of vessels based on the Paradox's principles." Voss stepped forward. "With respect, Admiral, you can't replicate the Paradox. It wasn't designed. It evolved. Each flaw, each jury-rigged repair, each impossible solution was born of necessity and desperation." "Then what do you suggest?" the admiral asked. "Stop trying to build perfect ships," Voss answered simply. "The Sarkonians showed us the weakness of perfection. It's predictable, inflexible, and ultimately fragile. Instead, we should embrace adaptation, improvisation, and the unexpected advantages of imperfection." She looked out at the assembled leadership of humanity, seeing the dawning understanding in their eyes. "The Paradox wasn't strong despite its flaws," Voss concluded. "It was strong because of them, and that's a lesson we'd do well to remember." As the assembly broke into applause, Voss thought of her battered ship waiting in orbit above, its mismatched hull plates and jury-rigged systems, a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. In a galaxy that valued perfection, they had turned imperfection into their greatest weapon, and nothing in the universe could stop them.